So, Lucky Hank Episode 2. It looks like I have the market cornered for this show since the reviews aren't up yet, and for the first time, my review for this episode might be the first one out. And that's awesome. But yeah, I can see why this would happen. This might be a sign that viewership isn't that high for this show, and I can see why. The show does its best to make this like really specific, this niche setting of like an English faculty in a college as accessible as it can to like lay viewers and or people from different fields, people who are looking for a new slow-paced show that's just more than what mainstream media provides us. But the setting is still hard to relate to. It goes in the middle when it comes to being serious and being over the top funny. Like I said, it's not like Bad Education where it actually exposes something in the education system that it would be informative for viewers to watch it about like something that can actually affect their lives, or it's not as over the top or as referential in its humor like Community. There are no like quips, smart Alex, memeable moments, or like extremely lovable characters like Abed, Troy, and the rest of that cast. This is a show about flawed human beings who aren't there to win you over or gain your sympathy. The show is introspective, it's retrospective, it's self-reflective, and I love it for it. This is exactly the show I was looking for, like not only because of those things I said earlier, because it covers themes that are relevant to me or that I see in people I know, or just like that I would just love to see covered in a TV show that doesn't hammer it into your head. So like episode 2 deals with trauma, parental issues, abuse of power, misogyny in the workplace, even living up to the standards set by your parents or by their position. There's nepotism in the eyes of the person who's a nepo baby, and even student entitlement is here. This episode I think was better than the first, but the show is showing its problems. Like there's one reoccurring subplot that I do not give two F's about, and since this is not a spoiler, since nothing changes, in this subplot, it's about like the main character's daughter and her husband, and it just doesn't seem to like move anything on. It's just like this weekly gag. Oh, what idea is he gonna have this time? In what creative way are they gonna spring this on her parents so that they can ask for money? It's just like a bad weekly gag that takes you out of the more serious and more impactful storylines of the show. And before I get to the spoiler segment of the show, I'm gonna first commend the soundtrack, since it exactly fits my music taste, and they're building up this streak of banger song choices that fit with the actual episode when it comes to like as a song, the feel, as well as what the episode is about. It's kind of like Red from OSP, from Overly Sarcastic Productions. So yeah, I totally get why I started a joke is the song for episode 1, but I don't know how Le Tourbillon de la Vie, is that correct? Any French speakers, is that correct? I still don't know how this one relates to the episode at large, except for like the feel. All I know is this song is the song from Jules and Jim, and it's basically like a summary of that movie. So yeah, on to the spoiler segment of the show. So the main story of the episode is that Hank is going to do this writer talk with one of his peers from his youth named George, who ends up being more successful than Hank and who is indirectly responsible for Hank's writer's block, for his trauma, because George was Hank's friend who had an affair with Hank Sr. And just imagine if that like happened to you, like the gender or sexual orientation of who Hank's father slept with doesn't matter. Like just having it be someone like of your age group who's your friend or like your lover or a rival or just a peer. How emotionally scarring that is. How that will like destroy your worldview. Like the cheating will be enough to do that, but the rest will be like teabagging and flossing all over your worldview. Like imagine how that will make someone feel like inadequate and pretty much worthless. And people might pretend that it's okay, it's the person's choice, he had to get out of this toxic relationship, that he wasn't happy with his life. People might say people sleep around, but you made a commitment. There are other people involved in this, some who will be scarred for life, and it'll be your fault. And the kid might end up as flawed as Hank. So initially, we don't know what George's deal is. We only get this like YouTube video that Hank opens up before the opening credits, and it's where George like literally says in an interview watched by like thousands or like millions of people that like he slept with Hank's father to get published. Like what a dick move that is. It's such a politicker move. Hank should have kicked his ass right there. But as the episode goes on, we find out more and more about him, and then that he's a pretty okay dude. He's actually pretty cool. He actually loved Hank's father and was like inspired by him to be a great writer. It's just that Hank's father is a cheating piece of shit. He even apologized to Hank after he like put him on the spot in the middle of the class. It's almost like making fun of his writer's block. Like, what did he expect Hank to say? Like the truth in front of the students? That would totally ruin George. And it would teach the students of like dirty tactics in getting ahead in life. Hank actually had some pretty good restraint. The second obstacle to his block is Hank's feeling of inadequacy. He's a nepotism baby. So I bet he got a lot of, oh, I bet you're only here because of your parents. Like, what the hell was Hank supposed to do? Was he supposed to ruin his life? Or like move out to start from zero just to prove himself to some people? He is playing with a hand that was given to him. And granted, he didn't make the most out of his situation. But you don't have to be as great as your predecessors. Whatever gets you through this life is enough. We're born, we live, we make our marks in the world. For the majority, it's minuscule. And then we die. We don't know what happens after, but overall our time on the earth is insignificant and fleeting. That was a hell lot of overthinking, but just like Hank, he assumes George thinks all of this about him, but when he talks to his best friend, dude encourages him to just talk to George, and it's the complete opposite of what he was thinking. I just wish that's how it was in real life, because people lie to your face when you do this. My god, this show is so real. So yeah, the talk is a big success. He wins in the end and realizes something about his father that I think will play a factor throughout the show. It feels like they're setting him up with an encounter with his father, but at least now he can be a lot more secure about himself, and it's one step closer in lifting that block. So yeah, for the second storyline, it's with Gracie Dubois. She's the lady who hit Hank with the spiral notebook and like ran against him as the new department head. This storyline is a bit more overt since Paul Rourke, one of the tenured teachers, is big timing her. And it's just a minor thing, like the revving of his engine outside her classroom. This would be okay if it wasn't done in such an inappropriate location, in a school. And when confronted, it's like he's just doing this for pleasure, because he can. It's kind of like the Million dialogue. The strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. It's true in every workplace. Even the ones where you think people are the most like refined or intelligent. It's in human nature. But here it's a bit more overt than the main story. Like the main story is the only one that's, I think, treated with the most subtlety and realism out of like all the subplots. But if we had that all the time for everything, this show would just be like Depression the show. This story here is like the more conventional hero versus villain sort of narrative. But it doesn't end with the villain being completely destroyed. Since he's still there, eventually he's gonna get that car back. This is a minor inconvenience. He's still of a higher rank. And he just ends up burying her in his class. Like her works in his class, in front of his students. And then after this, we get the root to why Grace is like this, to why she won't stand up for herself, that she had to be prompted by her students. It would have been cool to like see Grace push back more. It would have been more effective in presenting her considering her background, where like she lived in this military home where her father ran his house like a barracks and her students had to point this out. So yeah, I like where that story's going. And it makes the villain of the last episode feel a bit more sympathetic. Maybe we'll get some more character development of the other faculty members as like side plots. We might get the villain of the episode, like just the stories of their lives. But who knows for episode 3? And as for the last storyline, like the most unserious out of all of them, but also the most mainstream, is the storyline of the students. I forgot his name, but the main kid who hates Hank, and like his friend who's clearly into him and puts him over all the time, and it looks like he just wants to get in his pants, as well as this other girl who's kind of like the same. They both just want to get in his pants. And maybe since he's like a rich boy, he's also like a nepo baby who thinks very highly of himself and isn't at the point where he isn't feeling the same inadequacy as Hank is. He still thinks everything he does is like perfect. I'd love to see how that character develops. I think that should be like a season 2 thing. I can see this club as like a comedic obstacle for the main character in the future. But yeah, we get the founding of his excellence committee, which is just like an ego-driven, delusional sort of club where only he's the one who like follows the mission. The other 2 people are just there to like pander to him because they want something from him. But yeah, that story is looking promising. Unlike the thing with Hank's kid and her husband. That thing, again, like I said, it's just like this running gag. It's a very low potential for me. Like, if they were out of the show, if like Hank's kid and her husband were just out of the show, I wouldn't care. So yeah, episode 2, I think is better than episode 1. It deals with more serious themes. It's a lot more real, more relatable at some aspects. And it makes me want to watch the rest of the show, even if the whole world doesn't seem to want it. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe for engagement. Share if you don't know me. Check out the other wrestling content because wrestling needs more fans, especially everything outside the WWE. And please, for the love of God, spread the word about this show because it is so fucking good. So yeah, watch my shit. Bye-bye.